What happens when you take two guys from New York who absolutely love to talk and give them a license to rant? You get your hosts, John Peasy and Mikey Sausage.
Hey, Mikey, I feel like this is deja vu. People don't know what happens in the middle of all of this. They never know. How are you?
I'm just as good as I was before.
That's not what she said.
All good. All good. Oh, my, these sound effects. Well, so why don't you just get some props like that guy with the red hair? What's his name?
Yeah, I do have props. You know that I do props for the shows. I'm actually adding more and more props. I'm actually doing mentalism right now. So speaking of mentalism, you know, today's guest is down under. She lives in Australia, and right now it's like 7 a.m. in the morning, even though it's like almost 7 o'clock at night here. And we have to thank her for getting up so early, which is really cool. You've never been to Australia, have you? She's from Queensland. Have you been there?
You know, just on YouTube.
Yeah, like everywhere else in the world. Yeah, on YouTube. I've been to outer space on YouTube. I've been everywhere.
I actually know, besides the comedian, that guy Jim that we interviewed, I actually know somebody that's in Australia, and he's actually Greek like him. There's a lot of Greeks there, and he owns like a chocolate factory, and like a storefront. Yeah, and we call him Chocolate Johnny. Like, he's all on Twitter. He's all over the place. And I became actually friendly with him. He used to be on Blab. You remember Blab? When, like,
yeah, I remember
like
Blab,
a Zoom
yeah.
thing. Right. So
Yeah.
he was on Blab, and that's how we met. So we call him Chocolate Johnny. And he has like a chocolate factory. It's like his second, third generation in that business. And
you know, that's so funny,
that's
too,
how
because I just met a guy who, you know, I have the levitation I invented that you levitate people with. And I have a man who is a philanthropic guy. He's Greek, lives in Queensland, Australia. He just ordered one of the levitations from me. And I'm looking this guy up thinking, why is this guy in Australia buying a levitation from me in the United States? I look him up. He's an IT guy, and apparently he's a philanthropic person. He's there giving money to children. He runs a camp for kids at a disadvantage and teaching and helping. And I'm looking, he's like a multi-millionaire philanthropic guy. And I was like, whoa.
Is he a magician?
No, he just loves magic. He does like a little magic, something in the summer or the winter for the kids, but he also has programs where he teaches them to cook and take care of themselves and do all kinds of things.
So he's going to levitate children. I hope he don't hurt nobody. Well,
I'm going to have to show him how to do the trick, but I'm sure he's going to do fine. But I was just surprised. You know, it's funny, all these connections to Australia, suddenly, all of a sudden. And this woman, Judy, is kind enough to have gotten up so early to come on the show with us. And I'm that's Judy. I'm super excited to inquire about her because this is a fantastic story. And I don't want to really let in on the story. However, this woman is somebody that's had experiences since she was very young. And apparently she could tell us something about gray aliens that most people are not going to believe. Most people believe they're evil in nature or something, and this changes the way I think people think, generally speaking, especially if you're not into this space. So
right.
just to bring her on here, I'm not going to give her a long intro.
But she's an author too, right? So
yeah,
she's written a lot of books.
Several books. And I think one is more fascinating than the other. She started off as a dancer in Queensland, Australia. And
what's
later
the latest
on,
book that she wrote, Mr. Peasy?
Well, she has several books. The one that I'm most interested in is the Zeta. An Interview with an Alien is, I believe, her latest one, I believe.
Correct. You did a
but
good
the
job.
one that I'm most interested in is the one about her being a Zeta. I'm sorry. She's a Zeta by day and a human by night and vice versa. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I really want to unpack that as much as I can. So we really want to appreciate her coming in and taking her time and waking up early all the way from the other side of the planet. Please welcome Judy Carroll.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Judy, it's like we
What
never saw
movie-
you before.
Sorry?
What movie is that? What movie is that from, Peasy? Oh, is that something good? Judy. What was that? How was that?
That's an old movie.
I can't remember. It's driving me crazy.
Judy. That was like Errol. That's like what's his name? I don't want to get into it. You're going to drive me nuts now.
Judy, do you know Judy?
I know a few Judys. I work with a Judy.
No,
Which
it was
gets
a
everyone very
movie.
confused.
It's a reference to a movie or a show or something. The guy went Judy. I can't remember what the hell it was. It's driving me insane.
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't it Tony Curtis?
It could be. Maybe it was on The Odd Couple.
Well,
Were
no,
they
I
doing
don't
something
know.
in
It
The Odd
doesn't
Couple?
matter. What we
Okay.
really wanted to know, the biggest thing about being from Australia is what we said earlier. When you flush the toilet, does it spin this way or that way? That's the thing that we never understood.
Well, now she'll be looking
That's
for
really
that.
cosmic.
Now you are
Now,
in
don't-
Queensland. She knows. You are in
No,
Queensland.
No, it's not
Say again, Mike?
Queensland. It's Queensland. It's not Queensland.
Queensland.
Is that correct? Okay.
Queensland.
Sorry, I've never been to Australia. I
Apologize.
really would love to go to Australia one of these days. So tell us, Judy, I understand that you, and I believe it was in 1983, am I correct?
Yes.
At the age of 30, had your first daytime encounter with a gray.
I sure did. 3 of them, actually.
Can you explain to us how this began for you? Because I understand that you were first a dancer, and then later
Yes.
on became intuitive, and then a Reiki teacher, and continued into all these different things. How did this all pan out for you in a nice capsule for us to understand?
Yes. Okay. Well, I made a pre-birth choice to come in as with a blended soul consciousness, a dual soul consciousness, with a connection to the Earth human culture and also the Zeta Grey culture. And I did this so I could be a bridge between the two cultures at this time. But in order for me to do this, I needed to experience the fear of contact with ETs. So I closed off the ET side of my consciousness through my childhood. So through my childhood, I was aware of being taken or abducted, the word they use. I don't like that word, but a lot of people use it, so they're familiar with it. At night, taken up onto a ship. I can remember a couple of instances of this happening. And I had a lot of fear as a child. I was massively scared of someone coming into, I always thought someone was going to come into the house and take me. I always had this fear. I was terrified of the dark. But anyway, in 1983, I had a very interesting opening experience. We were living out on acreage at the time, and my husband's family were visiting us one afternoon. And during the afternoon, I started feeling like I was coming down with the flu. I started feeling a bit off colour. So I apologised and went upstairs and lay down on the bed in a back bedroom, shut the door so I could just lie down quietly for a while, hoping to feel better. Anyway, as I lay down, I started going into the semi-paralysed state that a lot of people describe when they're having contact with off-planet people. And I started hearing a very loud, strange, roaring, buzzing sound in my head, which seems to also be part of this phenomenon. There was also a headache accompanying it. And of course, I was absolutely terrified, trying to move. I couldn't call out. I couldn't do anything. The next thing, I was aware of being shifted into like an alternative consciousness state, and I was also very clearly aware of 3 greys, 3 Zeta greys standing beside the bed. And in fact, they were so solid they were blocking out light coming in through a window. And immediately my fear dissipated and I recognised them as family. So this was the first conscious, recall I have of meeting up with them. And a very long conversation followed, and they gave me instructions. They made a little joke with me along the lines of, you've been hiding yourself away out here for far too long. It's time for you to get back to work. And they started explaining to me who and what I was, that, my mission down here. And the advice they gave me, because I'd been a professional dancer and I needed to learn meditation, And being a dancer, I was very physically oriented. I'd sort of had a couple of goes just over the past few weeks of trying to learn to meditate, and I just couldn't do it. So their advice was, okay, you need to learn to meditate so that we can get communication with you. And for you to do this, to bridge the gap between the dancing, you need to learn Tai Chi. Now, Queensland back in 1983, we hardly even knew what Tai Chi was. I don't think I'd ever really heard about it. I didn't know a lot about it, let's put it that way. I had a bit of an idea it was a sort of a yoga thing, but that's all I knew. So anyway, they also told me that I needed to move back to town, that, you know, to be able to work, I needed to move back to the city. And at that stage, we'd been living out in the country for about 5 or 7 years, absolutely loved it. We had our horses and dogs and every chooks and chickens and things, with no plans to move back into town at all. But over the next 3 years, their prediction came absolutely correct. We had to move back into town. Circumstances changed, so we did. And amazing coincidences started happening. About a week after we moved back into the city in our new home, Tai Chi classes were started just down the road, which I joined up with, and we got new neighbours, one of whom had been meditating for 10 years, and her teacher was moving up here to Queensland from Tasmania and was looking to start a meditation group. And I was invited to join. Now, I wasn't a meditator. I'd never meditated, and this was a closed meditation circle, which normally is very hard to get into. And here I had this invitation. So it was obvious that strings were being pulled behind the scenes for me. Anyway, I spent 8 years training in this circle. I started training in voice channeling, but because the Greys aren't verbal, they don't have verbal communication skills, they had a lot of trouble working with my human voice box. And in fact, the funny thing is, ever since childhood, I've had trouble with my lower jaw, and I think this is some ET genetics in me. I've actually had a couple of instances of physiotherapy having to be done. So they had no success in trying to channel verbally through me, so they got me onto automatic writing. And this was so useful because it was training for me to be able to write books later on, which of course they knew I was going to do. I didn't know, but they knew all this. So basically that's where it all started, with this amazing experience, which was actually a walk-in experience. More of my zeta grey consciousness came into the body on that day back in 1983. I was aware of incredible changes in my own personality after it. I did change. Just about became a different person. So that was the start of it.
There's a lot there to unpack, a real lot. The first thing was, you see that the noise, you get a noise that is really loud and it makes you pop out of the body, I guess. And I guess that's an OBE, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the second portion of that is that you're saying that you recognize these alien Greys as your family, so that we're all connected to Grey people as a family now. And by the way, and they're giving you advice as what you're supposed to do here on the earth. So you have a consciousness that's split between humanity and Grey consciousness. You have two, you have both sides coinciding as a dichotomous. In other words, it's almost like the left and right side of a brain. However, at this point, it's the left and side right of consciousness between them and you. Yeah, that's well put. And you're taking advice from family, which, by the way, is not always the best thing to do. Maybe in this particular case it is. So then my first thought would be, being this as I mean, it's just I have no problem comprehending this, but I'm wondering, like, average person watching this that has no idea of this space, it would be almost like talking Bitcoin to a 4-year-old. Somebody that has no idea of this space is going to look at this and go, wait a minute, what is Judy talking about? Wait a minute. We're going to look at that and say, how could you have consciousness from one side of another part of the planet and yourself as humanity, number one? And number two, how do we know that this is real? How do we know that these beings are real? How do we know that you're not dreaming, having out-of-body experiences that are experienced in ways that you're being fooled with screens or something? Or how do we know? How do you feel that your knowingness. I hate to say knowingness, but when we look at the sun every day, we know it shines and you know it's good. And then there's artificial light. You know, there's a difference between real and what's created. So how do you know, how does your knowing is interpreted?
Well, okay, I've actually had experiences up on the ship where I've had things done to my body, and I've woken up the next morning with marks where these things happened. I have another friend who goes through a very, very similar thing. She has a lot of recall from being up on the ship and doing work. We work up there together. She comes back with bruises on her body on a very, very regular basis. So we actually have physical evidence. I had some wonderful evidence many, many years ago. I remember doing some work up on the ship, allowing some of the small greys to practice using a laser cutter on my leg, and my lower right leg. Then I woke up the next morning with a absolutely perfectly straight cut around my leg with little blisters, so I could see it had been sealed by being cauterized. And I curse myself to this day that I didn't have a camera that I could take a photo of it, because it was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, I've had physical evidence. I also had another experience where a large needle with a very big crystal on the end was put into my third eye chakra point right there. And I woke up the next morning with a red scar there. So yes, I have brought back physical evidence.
Wow. What now? Another thing that's intriguing me. You're saying that you're on the ship now. Are you? And you're saying you're on there physically. So you obviously know what the ship looks like. You know the relationship you have between you and these greys. And you're saying they're extended family. Is it the chicken or the egg? Are they first or are we first? Are we second? Where's the chicken and the egg started here?
That's a hard question to answer. Well, I mean, there's more and more evidence coming out now. I mean, disclosures started. We had an amazing program on TV the other night about the disclosures thing. What's his name? Robert Sala spoke, who was the commander of a military nuclear facility where the ETs came down and shut down a number of nuclear warheads. He described it. He said they just went down, boom, 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 one after the other. And he's a very, very lovely soul. As he said, feeling he got was that they were saying, look, stop all your fighting, start learning to live in peace with each other. But it was a wonderful program. It was called Phenomenon, and it was put on in primetime TV on Sunday night on a main channel. And it was tied in with the 60 Minutes program, in which the disclosure is starting to come out. So I think there'll be more and more people opening up.
Australia is very liberal, I noticed, in a lot of this. I've been watching a lot of Australia on YouTube, a lot of Australia 60 Minutes and other things. They're very liberal. But, and right now in the United States here, we're supposed to have, maybe today or any time this month, there's releasing a UFO report on what the United States knows about extraterrestrials and UFOs. It's coming out this month. Whether or not we get 100% the real information, I have no idea, because I doubt very much they're going to be very forward with us. But so you're saying that these great people are your family. So tell us about the great person, and explain to me what is zeta, the experience your life as a zeta. What does that mean to us when you say experience your life as a zeta? Is that you're telling us the information that they've given you?
Well, what I'm trying to get across is people look on them as aliens. That word, we don't like that word. When I very, very first had conscious contact with them, I asked once, look, what do you like being called? Do you like being called zetas or ETs or aliens or what? And the teacher who I was working with, a tall grey, said, look, we don't really mind, we don't like aliens because it's too much them and us. He said, what we really like you should think of us as family. But yeah, so basically what I'm trying to get across down here is the fact that they're not all that different. They're not alien. They're not different. I have conscious experiences up on the ship as a grey, and of course I'm conscious down here as an Earth human. And when I'm speaking to you as an Earth human, I'm no different to if I was speaking to you as a grey. I'm exactly the same person. I have the same feelings, the same reactions to things, the same sense of knowingness around me. The only difference is, as a grey, my consciousness is much more expanded. The other funny thing is people accuse us, when I say us, I mean the greys, of not having emotion. But in actual fact, we do. We experience emotion actually deeper than people do down here, because our ability to pick up on senses is much more expanded. I've had the experience of actually working with an Earth human up on the ship, doing work on them. I've spoken about this in a lot of interviews, but look, I think I'll go through it again. We had a fellow taken up on the ship one night, and I went to walk into the clinic. The clinic's the room where we do our medical work. And as I put my head around the corner, he caught sight of me, and the look of horror on his face was just beyond words, because he saw me in my grey form. And I tried as hard as I possibly could to communicate with him, because we don't communicate verbally, we communicate telepathically. And when a person's in fear, you cannot get through to them. It's like they're in a cocoon of terror. And I ended up literally shouting at the top of my telepathic voice to try to say to him, look, don't be scared, I'm not going to hurt you, we're going to help you. And what he was up on the ship for was, he'd been taken by a negative group down here, the cabal everyone talks about, and they perform fake alien abductions on people. And this is where a lot of the fear comes from, because they use these programmed life forms that look like greys, but they're not. They've been actually bioengineered down here. And he had had an implant put into his head by this group, and we took him up on the ship to get rid of it. And 3 of us were standing around his head, and I have a clear memory of my long, thin grey fingers going down inside his head, actually removing this implant. And I commented to the other 2 people who were with me, oh, that's good, we've got it out now, that this will keep him safe. He won't, they shouldn't be able to take him anymore. And I also remember thinking to myself, I'll remember this man if I'll ever see him down on Earth, because he had a very distinctive face. He had like the way some people have that moustache there and a beard going around like a circle. And I remembered this very clearly and thought to myself, if I ever see him down on Earth, I'm going to recognise him. And anyway, funnily enough, I did see him. And I knew it was the same person. And
Did he
actually
recognize
had a
you?
scar on his head. No, it was a photo I saw. But even if I'd seen him face to face, I wouldn't have said anything.
This is fascinating.
I'm wondering, you said that they put a laser cutter on you, that your friend had bruises. Why does it seem like they're being mean to you, for lack of a better word? I mean, why is all this physical damage to your body happening?
Now, in actual fact, we often do it ourselves, because when we're up there, we're out of body, completely out of body. So we will often allow things like that to happen to bring our awareness to it down here. There's no pain involved. Even when they were practicing this laser cutting on my body, there was no pain involved whatsoever. I was actually supervising them, because I remember at one point they were trying to get around my leg and they couldn't quite reach, and I was saying, look, turn my leg over, that way you'll be able to get under it. So I was actually supervising them and advising them. And the next morning when I woke up and found the cut, it was a deep cut, because it left a scar for a couple of years after, and yet there was absolutely no pain involved, and it healed up really quickly within about a week.
So to reiterate then, just because I know what Mike is just asking you, I think, and I understand what he's saying, and I'm thinking to myself, so to the viewer that's watching or listening to this right now, you're saying that you are physically here in bed sleeping as a 3D body, and then your ethereal body, if you will, or your soul is transposed into the ship, where you are in. If you have a physical feeling up there, you are physical, yet you could feel no pain. It's happening to the body that's physically down here, but yet you're up there like etherically, I would assume. Am I correct in my assumption? Sort
of. This is really, really complex to explain. There's sort of 3 levels. We have our physical body down here, which the Greys refer to as a container. It's a container for the soul. When I leave that body at night, I step out of it, into like an astral form. And I've actually seen myself do this. I've seen myself shift into my grey form, which I then go up onto the ship. Now, this particular night when we were doing the practice on my leg, I actually had my astral body lying on the bed and a higher part of me was behind it, guiding. So we're talking about 3 levels here. We're talking about physical, astral, and then beyond astral, like 5th dimension or 6th dimension or whatever. The thing that helps people to understand this, but it's really, really complex to explain, as humans or greys or whoever, we're all multidimensional beings. We're not just physical form, we're multidimensional. So once people can get their heads around this, it helps you to understand, but it's really, really difficult to put into physical words.
Is it a physical ship that other people can see here, and can you contact them, or do you have to wait for them to contact you?
Okay, I wait for them to contact me, but sometimes I can contact them. The ships are multidimensional, so they can appear as physical, or they can appear or shift to a higher dimensional frequency. This is how they just disappear in the blink of an eye. They shift through to a higher frequency. The ET technology involves consciousness. And this is where science down here needs to go. It needs to access more understanding about consciousness. And it's consciousness that controls our vibrational frequency. It's all to do with the vibrational frequency of energy, so that physical energy vibrates on a slower level. And then as our vibrational frequency goes up, we become less physical. We go into a finer frequency. The whole universe operates on this. It's all to do with energy frequency.
Makes a lot of sense to me. But don't you think that, hey, Mike, you and I, like, we're around a lot of people in New York, and I know people that are really tough people, tough guys, people that are all about money, all about the 3D world, getting ahead, being number one. They'll step on anyone. So I would presume those are low level people don't have a high vibrational thing because they're trapped into the 3D. And you're saying that people that become more elevated in their, I guess, energy and clarity,
energy frequency,
they get above that. They're able to see these other realms and attract more of their. Because you have a teacher, right? You have a teacher that's there helping you. Because you're suggesting earlier that they're pushing you or prodding you to go to meditation or to write a book. So it's almost like they have they may be your family, but it's almost as if they're have an influence over you on some level, or there's a synchronicity that's created on the earth and from them for you to go towards, which gives us a beginning, middle, and end of your life.
Yeah,
I know that's not a question. Yeah. I'm just trying to follow the direction of what you're saying.
Judy, I have a question. Judy, do the Greys suffer illness or disease, and do they have a lifespan? Do they die?
Well, there's all different levels of Greys. There are some who are right up there who have very, very strong, long lifespans, and then there are others, yes, who have a physical being as well as we do. But, we're the same. We have a physical aspect and we have higher aspects. They generally don't have many health problems because they understand how to keep their energy systems in balance. Planet Earth and Earth plane humanity is one of the lowest, sentient life forms in the universe. I was given a teaching on a thing that the Greys refer to as the human ladder, and it's 10 rungs, and each rung represents a level of conscious awareness, so that those planets or cultures on the first rung, like planet Earth, level 1 can access about 10% of our potential conscious awareness. Those on level 2 can access about 20%, 30%, etc. When you get up to level 10, you're able to consciously access full consciousness. Now, the Greys are up from about level 5 upwards, and so they understand how to keep their bodies in a much more balanced state than we do. Also, up on the ET ships, they have these beds. Susie Hansen, in her book, Dual Soul Connection, talks about them. She refers to them as shelf beds. And what they are, they're like a shelf that folds down from the wall. And if you come off a shift feeling a bit tired or you're not feeling well or something, you can lie down on these beds and they connect your consciousness into the consciousness of the ship. And it has the effect of sort of defragging your consciousness. I know this is a bit of an old computer term, but it's really accurate. By linking into the consciousness of the ship, defrags your own consciousness and restores health. I think of them as healing beds. So we have access to them if we need something like that when we're up there.
Wow. We need that here on the planet Earth. I think we need that big time.
I'm just wondering, like, can they cure cancer? Can they cure diseases? Or is that something that people on Earth have to suffer? Or do they have the ability to help that?
They can. This is really why people are taken up on the ships. They're taken up for healing. They're also taken up for DNA repair, because Earth humans' DNA was interfered with quite a long time back. So we're trying to repair that as well now that the planet's going into this shift. At the same time, we're not always allowed to, like any healing is, like if it goes against karma, that's what I'm trying to say. It might be a karmic thing that the person is carrying in their body, so therefore we're not allowed to interfere. But if it's something that's just come up that we are allowed to, then yes, we can work on them. And this is the reason why I was guided into learning Reiki down here. Reiki is very similar. We always, whenever we're sending or giving Reiki, we always ask permission of the person's higher self. It's never just forced on anyone. You can't force it on anyone. You're not allowed to. So it has to be by permission of their higher self. Sometimes the higher self allows it. Other times the higher self doesn't, because the condition of illness is a karmic thing that is meant to teach the person a lesson or whatever.
How do they recreate or procreate?
It's done on an energetic level. And if it's done on a physical level, genetic material is taken from the two people and it's blended in a test tube.
Doesn't sound like as much fun as here. Then again, it depends on the size of the test tube, because it's shaped in the same way.
Well, I have a very close friend down here. We were a twin soul in a past zeta life, and we always joked that we got created in the same petri dish.
You do seem to have a very good sense of humor, and I could see that you have a happiness internally in you, which is I appreciate. You know, when I think about this, I read in some of your material about something called Reptilians. Now, there's so many things to unpack here, but the first thing is I understand from other people I've read other books. They told me that there's reptilian beings that actually eat human beings. They actually enjoy us like they want to eat you. And you're saying a few moments ago that the Greys are good. They're part of our family. And then you're saying earlier that there's some Greys that are man-made or man-made with physical and robotic material, and they're used to frighten people. So these are two questions that really make me, you know, where are we going with that when this is concerned? Are the Greys, why is somebody in our world trying to make them look bad, number one? And then number two, are there really malevolent reptilians that eat people in our world that you're aware of? And what a crazy question. I mean, where would you get this question in the actual daily life? You know, you never get that.
Okay. It's a very, very complex subject. I go into it deeply in my book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History. Where the negative problems coming from is an earlier race of Earth humans were created down here at the time of the dinosaurs by
Nephilim?
Sorry?
Is it Nephilim?
Oh, yes, Nephilim, yeah. Or Anunnaki is another word. But I call them the Repterans. That's the book that's come up on screen. I call them Repterans to differentiate them between Reptilians. Off-planet Reptilians are generally quite good, decent people. I have several friends who are reptilians. I have a friend who has a doctor who's a reptilian, and he's a very beautiful soul. I was in contact with a reptilian person who was an ex-police woman, and now she's into animal rescue. The negative reptilians are from here. They're an older human race that was created down here at the time of the dinosaurs, and I call them Repterans to differentiate them from the off-planet reptilians. Now, they are present here on Earth right now. They hijacked the planet millennia ago, and they're the ones behind all the cabal, all the Illuminati, all the stuff that goes on, all the negative brainwashing stuff. They basically been brainwashing modern man for, since he was created. And the off-planet ETs, such as the Greys and others, are now coming here to try and assist Earth humanity to move on and evolve. One of the Grey teachers once compared planet Earth to being like a little pool of water that's been cut off from the mainstream of a river. And this is the result of the hijacking. Earth plane humanity have been held back very, very badly. And this is why the genuine ETs are here now, at the time of the planetary shift, which is happening now, to try to teach Earth humans and to get them away from all this brainwashing, which is what I'm doing through my books. But the ones carrying this out, these Repterans, they can reincarnate down here as Earth humans, or they can still be in their slightly sort of reptilian forms, and they're not actually from off-planet, they're from here. And this is how they influence humans so much. They are from planet Earth. They come from a lower dimension, but they can come through to this dimension here. And they're the ones who are behind creating these negative-looking greys. Dr. Stephen Greer talks about them. He refers to them as PLFs, programmed life forms. And they use all sorts of techniques when they do these fake abductions. They use hypnotism, they use drugs, they use these fake greys people think are real greys. And the whole idea is to make humans scared of the genuine ETs who are here to help. That's basically what they're doing.
So those earlier books of David Icke then are correct?
Yes, in a way.
In a way.
I think he put a very frightening sort of thing on it. Not even all the Repterans are negative. There are some down here who are working for the good of the planet. But the negative group is part of this group. But you can't say they're all bad. Let's put it that way.
So, and this explains a lot. And then we've interviewed other people that told us that there's Pleiadians, and there's a Pleiadian planet and Pleiadian people. I guess, a group of Pleiadians. Then there's a thing called the Galactic Federation of people helping people of the Earth, trying to do the same thing that you're saying that the Greys are doing. Are you familiar with that at all, or is that part of what you've learned?
I've heard of it. I haven't had anything to do with it. I do know about the Pleiadians. Yes, they're genuine, but again, there's a lot of trickery going on here. Some of the so-called Pleiadians being channeled comes from the negative group, and so they put through negative messages about the Greys. Apparently, in about 1956, technology was developed to be able to get inside people's heads. So a lot of these channel messages aren't genuine. They're actually coming from down here. And I do notice that a lot of the Pleiadians who are featured just are so much like the Aryan ideal of Nazism, which worries me a little bit. I think there's a lot of trickery going on here, even in the New Age movement. That I'm aware of.
I wonder if these people get into politics, PZ. What do you think?
I would imagine so, because it's pretty nasty.
Oh yeah.
And they get a lot of control, right? So you get a lot of control.
Power, money, control.
Yeah. And because those humans are so caught up in physical appearance, that, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, beautiful human being, they'll believe them before they'll believe, what they perceive as an ugly-looking little grey. And so this is where there's a lot of trickery going on.
It's funny as you start to think about this. I mean, it opens up your mind and world to a whole different kind of idea. The thing I still have is I have a hesitancy about it all too, because just the same way that you're saying that they're our family and they're good, we don't know that it's not being presented to you as shielded in a way that's nefarious. We don't know. I don't know. I hear, like, for instance, just saying there's some Pleiadians coming through in a negative way. Well, how do we know that the Greys are not fooling you? And I'm not disparaging you in any way when I say that. I'm just playing devil's advocate for a moment.
Oh yeah, look, I totally understand, a question like that. Yeah. All I can say is that I'm no different as a Grey to how I am as an Earth human. As an Earth human, I can barely even manage to watch the news at night. It upsets me so much to see either a person or an animal being hurt. It really upsets me. And I know that if I was up on the ship and I ever saw anything like that happening, I would intervene. And all the Grey family that I know are like that. They're all extremely kind people. I've seen this again and again, kindness is being carried out. I can only speak as a Grey here. The fact that, I live this double life.
How big is this ship, though? I mean, and I mean, how many of them are out there, and how large are they? I mean, are you able to travel around on the ship? Is there like elevators up and down, or going around, or how? I mean, and how is it operating with power?
Yeah, there are all different size ships. There are the little scout ships, like the ones that crashed at Roswell or other crashes, the smaller ones. They could take physical form, as that one did. There's also the massive motherships they're huge. I mean, they're the size of almost the size of a city down here. Yeah, they got elevators and different levels and things. They actually are powered by consciousness. I think they refer to it as 0-point energy down here. The crew actually channel the energy. It's a little bit, I'll tell you what it's like, a little bit like channeling Reiki down here, only massively, massively bigger than that. So that when the ships are being driven, the crew actually place their hands on like a console, and the energy is drawn in through the top of their heads, the same as when we're doing Reiki. It comes in through the crown chakra, down their arms into the heart meridians, and out through the palms of their hands. I have done this myself, placing my hands on the console of a ship to drive it. We also wear a special outfit that sort of, it's like it insulates, like you get a outer coating of an electrical wire. That's what the uniforms are about. And we also wear special shoes that sort of ground us into the ship. So it's just run on very, very strong conscious energy, basically. It's really hard to put into Earth human terms.
I mean, it's almost like when we're driving a car, we're using our hands and our feet and everything to do everything, except we're not using our head chakra or just physicalness, How does COVID-19 fit into this? Any information about how COVID-19 fits into it with the Greys?
Okay, yes, look, I knew you would ask this. So look, what I've got here, I'll read out. My teacher, who I know as Maris, my Grey teacher, sent through a teaching or information on it back in early 2020, which I'll read out in a moment. But just before I do that, we had a very interesting experience up on one of the really big ships back in October of 2019. A couple of my friends and I were working up there, and we were absolutely inundated with this huge mass of Earth humans who had passed over. Now, the ships are used as like energy portals, so that when people die down here, in many, many cases, they come through our ships, and it's almost like an airport terminal, and they're directed towards certain portals to go through. And we were, this particular night on the ship, we were absolutely flat out. There were so many people being brought on board. And all of us woke the next morning with the memory of this. We were all madly emailing and phoning each other. Oh, were you there last night? Do you remember this? And we knew that there was going to be some sort of huge exodus on planet Earth. Because time doesn't work the same as it does down here, it was like a forward vision of what was going to be happening. And so all through November, December, January of 2019, 2020, we were waiting for some huge, huge event down here, massive thousands of people killed. And it didn't happen. And then the COVID started. So we know that it was like a preview of that. So anyway, my partner that does the YouTube interviews with me, Paula Jane, just before we did one of the interviews, she comes over for Reiki treatments as well. And she said to me, can you ask Maris about, what's going on with this COVID? So while I was giving her the treatment, I could feel his message starting to come through. So I thought, okay, I'll sit down and I'll write it down. And this is what it says. So I just started off by explaining that I was giving Reiki treatment to my friend, Paul Jane, and a message began formulating in my mind about the coronavirus, COVID-19. When I mentioned it at the end of the treatment, Paula burst out laughing. Unbeknown to me, as we went into the treatment, she'd put out a silent request to my grey teacher, Maris, to provide us with some information on this latest planetary drama, and he obliged. She reckoned it made a day. She was so excited because it was proof for him. Okay, so this is what he said. Everything in the universe is energy, so everything that manifests in the universe, whether perceived by Earth humans as good or bad, comes originally from source. To understand the reason why seemingly negative events occur, such as this virus, there are three basic facts that need to be taken into consideration. Firstly, source or God energy is non-polarized. It's neither negative yin nor positive yang, but rather composed of both polarities held in a state of perfect oneness and balance. However, once energy moves out from source and transmutes to a lower frequency, and most especially on a highly polarized planet such as Earth, separation and polarization occur. One aspect of extreme polarization are the illusions of good and bad. In the greater reality, these opposites do not apply. All is oneness and balance. But in 3D Earth plane manifestation, yes, such states are a subjective reality. Secondly, death is an illusion. What Earth humans perceive as the greatest tragedy that can happen, the death of a human being, is simply a prime opportunity for spiritual growth and evolution. The death of the physical body, which is nothing more than a container for the soul, frees the spirit to enable it to focus on higher learning. It can then choose whether to reincarnate back to a physical life on Earth or elsewhere, or else to progress to a higher, less physical level of the human ladder. No death is ever accidental. Every soul freely chooses in its pre-birth state when, where, and how it will make its transition at the end of the coming life. This virus is offering an opportunity for those who aren't ready for the planetary shift to leave through the portal of death. This will then enable them to reincarnate back again, if and when they're spiritually ready. The virus is part of a planetary and universal plan and purpose to enable ascension. Thirdly, the planetary shift from fourth to fifth world consciousness. We have discussed this in the past, and it is most important to understand that when a planet is going through an evolutionary shift, as Earth is doing now, those souls who are not ready or able consciously to make the transition in synchronization with their home planet take the opportunity to make a timely exit through death so they can then partake of higher learning between lives. They can then either reincarnate back again in step with their higher evolved planet, or else to another version of the planet that is more compatible with their lower energy frequency. Remember, planets, the sentient beings, are multidimensional, so in the greater reality there is an Earth to suit all tastes. This is the reason why mass deaths always occur around the time of planetary shifts. Death is not an ending, but rather a beginning. We are quite aware of the myriad conspiracy theories doing the rounds on Earth in connection with COVID-19, with certain negative agencies being blamed for creating and spreading the virus. Earth humans are always happiest when they have an enemy to blame for their woes. The bottom line, however, comes back to the personal Armageddon you are all facing as a result of the changing and evolving planetary energies. That is the choice between love and fear. It all comes back to this. The occurrence of COVID-19 is providing a major opportunity for spiritual growth by providing this choice between love and fear. You cannot evolve spiritually if you are not provided with this all-important choice. So in reality, the negative forces down here are doing you a great favour. In a way, they are your guardian angels. The choice is yours to make, each and every one of you. Are you going to be pulled into the herd instinct, stampeding into fear and panic, trampling over others around you in your terror, or are you drawn to a more evolved human energy of love and trust, and knowing that no matter what, all is well, and even death is not the end, but rather an opportunity for evolution to a higher state? Lastly, a point to consider: if you really can't get past your fear of potential death, fear has a very detrimental effect on the human immune system. So keeping positive is a great preventative medicine to help you to stay healthy.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that you wrote that down, and I am so glad that you read that today here on the show. I really am. People need to hear that. As a matter of fact, it's taking the negative and seeing it from a whole different circle of perspective. And now, Mike, looking at what she just said, tell me the truth. We both had COVID really bad. Matter of fact, he was on an intubated. Mike was
I was on a
down.
ventilator. Yeah.
A ventilator.
It actually makes me think that I had a choice, and I decided to stay. That's really what it's telling me. I mean, I was pretty much dead for all intents and purposes. And
hasn't it changed the way we think now? It has for me.
It changed me.
Yeah, it changed me
the way
too.
I live my life.
So it's basically the case in point of exactly what she's saying right now. Our lives were changed by something dreaded and negative that you came out of with a better view of the world because of it. I know I look at the world differently since having COVID and being ill for a month. You know, I definitely realize how short a time we have and how important it is to. I've noticed I've become more conscious about what I'm doing. I notice I slow down. I've been saying no to certain jobs that are going to put stress on me. I've been doing things that I normally wouldn't do. You know, I'm not on the fast track. I'm kind of keeping it real, as they say. That's really wonderful, Judy. I really appreciate you even saying that. I think that's something that we should cut out and keep in and replay over and over again. Hey, what do you think? What is the end plan now? Because they say that we're in the middle of a great reset, and this reset is said to be many things to many people. Some people believe it's a currency reset, going to a quantum financial system. Some people are claiming that this reset is going to be totalitarianism worldwide with control. Other people are saying it's going to be a new great world, getting rid of, we're all going to become one. There's going to be this Nasara, Jasara kind of thing popping up. And then there's these conspiracy theories, which, by the way, when it comes to conspiracy theories, people have been telling us, oh, this is a conspiracy, that's a conspiracy. I've been hearing it for a long time. If I came to you in 2018 and said that in 2020 and 2021, we're going to close our planet down and you're not able to work and we're not able to do this and you're going to be in the house and you can't come out and you're going to have to take a vaccine and you're going to have to, all these things that happen. If I told that to somebody, they would say to you, you're crazy if they told you that in 2019. But all these things really did happen. So now when I hear a conspiracy theory, I have a total opposite opinion of it. It's like, well, wait a minute, anything's open and anything's possible. What is your opinion on where we're going with this great reset from your understanding from the Greys?
Okay, look, the main thing that people need to understand is we create our own reality through the way we think. Quantum physics is proving this now, and the more people can take this on board, the better. This same teacher actually sent through a teaching years ago. I haven't got it on me at the moment, but what he was basically saying was explaining this, and he was saying that thinking negatively is very easy. It's like just being washed around like a jellyfish on the side of the ocean. Thinking positive takes as some active participation from you, but it pays out in the end because we're creating our own reality continually, both as individuals and as nations and as a planetary collective. So all I can say is we must start creating in positivity rather than in negativity. So the trick is to learn not to buy into all the fear. This is the problem with the conspiracy theories. They're all designed to cause fear, whether they come true or whether they don't. The bottom line is they're designed to cause fear. So you best if you can just non-attach and stand back. Okay, it might happen, it might not happen, but really we're in charge of our own reality and our future. So by learning to think positive where you possibly can is the key to the whole thing. This is why you can't really predict the future, because it depends on how people are thinking and creating their own reality.
That's a great explanation, by the way. And positive is a bad word for 2021. You know.
I want to just go all the way back. You said you make a pre-birth choice, but you don't realize you made that choice, right, Judy? I mean, if it's a pre-birth choice, I mean, when do you become aware that you made that?
Well, as you start to wake up, but this is the problem. People are being so brainwashed and kept asleep down here. This is why people usually don't remember these pre-life choices that they make. Life tends to guide us that way anyway. You know, things come up like guideposts along the journey of our life that sort of push us in the right direction. But yeah, it is hard. That's one of the difficulties of being on this planet and so brainwashed. You know, we're 90% closed down. You know, this is a difficulty.
You know, the more I think about this too, Mike, I mean, if we all make this choice to come in, and how we're going to come in, I mean, if you think about it, you'd all want to come in as like kings and queens, and you'd want to be like the top of the line of everything. If you're going to incarnate into this planet, you'd say, all right, I want to come in as the president. I want to come in as the guy who's the king of, you know, the king of Sweden or something, just to take the ride and really enjoy it to its max.
But the question is, do we all have gray relatives? All of us?
No, because there are many different ETs who have shared their genetics with Earth humans. So yeah, there's different lines down here. And just to go back to what you were saying there, John, when we make these pre-birth choices, we're not coming from our little self down here. We're coming from the perspective of our higher self, our soul self, which is the God part of us. And so therefore there's a much more, how can I say, you know, we're not necessarily going to decide, oh, I'm going to come as a you know, king or a queen or something. It's decided from what karmic lessons we need to learn.
Growth. We want to get growth.
In each life.
I realize that. Because just like we just said moments ago, through COVID-19, that was growth. We learned something from this pain. And without without learning, without the pain, there's no growth. And what's the point of life without growth?
Yes.
I do kind of understand it, and judgment as well, which is another whole situation. Just in a humorous way, I'm just saying this: how Mike and I get to go on this ship? Can we physically go on that ship? I don't mind if they cut my leg. I would be the happiest guy in the world.
I was just thinking about that. I don't know how you just said that.
Wouldn't it be unbelievable if we were able to go on there and see this? I mean, it would change. First of all,
I'm ready.
You go on that ship and then you're here physically in this world. It's gonna change your perspective of your daily life on such a dramatic way. It's going to change everything. The fact that you want
to, you probably are. There are many, many people being taken up there who aren't consciously aware. But the fact that you're interested in this subject, I would say that you probably are. But it's your job to not have, just the same as when I was a child, I didn't have a conscious understanding that I had ET connections. And so I suffered through the fear, and it was awful. It was horrible. I'm embarrassed to say that I wasn't going to go to sleep on my own at night until I was about 11 years old. I used to have to have my mum in there with me. So it wasn't pleasant at the time. So what it's done by you not having a conscious recall has put you in a position that you're in right now, asking these questions to enable others to learn.
Good point. Judy, we're almost out of time. And I have to tell you, I would hope you would come back and we would dissect one of your books, because your latest book, I mean, the Zeta Message, I'm going to read all of your books. I'm going to read them all. But An Interview with an Alien, I know, is your latest one. I'd like you to come back on in the future and perhaps have a conversation with just about one of the books. You've written several, but maybe one of the latest ones, if you don't mind, because I think we're only cracking at the beginning here. And I really am super pleased that you came on and happy with where we're going with this interview. So if you come back, I would really appreciate it in the future. I know it's early. Maybe we could do it at a time that makes it more convenient to you. But you've been a delight. delightful person. Can you tell us, so in order to have our viewers get in touch with you, I understand you have a website, YouTube, Facebook. I know the website which I've been on is judycarroll.info, and that's Judy CARROLL.info. How do we find you on YouTube?
Look, I'll just go back over that website. It's better to go in through ufograyinfo.com. The Judy Carroll one was the second one. Will be closing down soon. So it's ufograyinfo.com, and Gray is spelled with an E in the Australian way.
UFO Gray. Okay. Great. And what about .com? And how do we find you on perhaps YouTube? I know you have your own YouTube page.
Yes, we do. It's the URL is https://www.youtube.com/user/the Zeta message, and the 3 words the Zeta message all start with a capital letter.
Capital. Okay. And you're on Facebook as well?
Yes, yes. The Zeta message. Yeah, the Zeta message is our main page, and I also have a page, Judy Carroll.
That's wonderful. All right, and we could get your books on Amazon, I understand, as well.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the latest 2 books are out of the.
What do you recommend somebody that's not familiar with the space that they should start with? What book should you read first from your collection?
Look, I think the Zeta message, because it basically tells my story and the story of a family that I helped out back in 2000 who were undergoing very, very profound contact. And it turns out the mother of the family is one of the people who works with me up on the ship, my co-author, Helene Kay. So the Zeta message is the one I would recommend to start with.
We shall do. We really appreciate your time, and I hope that you will come back and give us another hour of just one of the books, or maybe even a 2-parter with 2 hours with each of the books, because you really are very clear, concise, poignant, and on point. When you ask a question, it's like right there, and I really appreciate that. You know your material, you know your stuff, and I could tell it's coming from the inside as opposed to some silly thing. You know, you really are on point. I appreciate it.
Oh, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak out like this. It's so important to have that support and backing. Thank you very much. I'd love to come back and talk.
Great. Thank you, Judy. And Mike, this was a great interview, and I can't wait to have her back again. Thank you again, Judy. We want to thank Leland, our producer, who's God underneath us all, and also John Galasso, our booker, John Galasso, who has a wonderful book out called A Smile, a Grin, a Laugh, That's Life. He's our talented manager, books all the talent over here. And we want to thank him as well. And we'll be back. And hopefully I really want to get Judy in here for a much more intensive day. Hey, I just want to see what this does before I leave. I have green tape. What do you think?